Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TAA Q&A with alcohol, rum and coke, more rum than coke. Someone will be like, why don't you just drink straight rum, pussy? I don't know. I like the combination of stimulant and depressant at the same time. Uppers and downers. Mild upper caffeine. Not as mild as people think, though. Strange that we let our kids drink it, but I don't have kids and I don't really care. Alcohol, of course, is the elixir of articulation. In other words, it makes you speak more eloquently, or at least that's what watching Christopher Hitchens' videos would have me believe. I should say that's what I've led myself to believe. You know, I want to believe it. It's an article of faith, but, you know, you gotta believe in something. As we're so often told as atheists, you gotta believe in something. Well, here you go. I believe in this. And yeah, I drink it out of a jar. Isn't that weird? Aren't I kooky? I only bring that up because last time I was drinking something out of a jar, like a million people were like, why are you drinking out of a jar? It works just as well as a cup. Why shouldn't I drink out of the jar? Anyway, you're not here to listen to me ramble incessantly about nothing. You're here to listen to me ramble incessantly about your questions. So I'm just doing this in the order that YouTube says are the top comments. So whatever metric they use to decide that, that's what I'm going by. And if that's unfair, blame YouTube. It certainly isn't my fault. What would you do if America made you emperor and worshipped you as a god and did anything you said? What would be your goals to accomplish before your death? Man, that's, I hate this kind of question on the spot because, this is the kind of question where you really want to sit down and make up some bullshit. You don't want to give the real honest answer that's just like, if I was a god and everyone worshipped me and did whatever I said, I wouldn't even be fucking thinking about, like, I'm going to improve the country. I don't care about that. It's just going to be like, all right, giant sex orgy. It's the law that I'm the most attractive person. It's the law that I'm the greatest. I would basically, I would switch from a fucking, my current mindset of like fuck authority and I'm just gonna be this fucking rebel that exists outside the system to whatever extent my pussy ass can actually pull that off. And of course, not very much. Like, the most rebellious thing I'll do is, like, I'm gonna grow a beard and smoke weed like millions and millions of other people. But, but I would go instantly from that to Kim Jong-un. Like, I am the greatest, bow down before me, all who question me are shit. Because power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and I am a very corruptible person, I'll give in to any vice or addiction like that. That's why I won't even try, like, super hard drugs. Because I know I'm not going to be the guy that does heroin and then, I do it a few times and then I realize, like, man, I'm really getting addicted to this. I better stop. I'm the guy that fucking does heroin and then 5 years later I'm just dead. Ugh. The internet would be like, he was a shitty man, but some of us did like him for some strange reason. So yeah, if I was emperor, just abuse the fuck out of my power. Maybe after like 200 years of my tyranny, I would actually start to feel guilty for my hedonistic, self-indulgent lifestyle and try to affect change. But, not before that. Not before that. I need at least 200 years of absolute unrestrained hedonism first, at the end of which, God or not, I would be 950 pounds. I'd be like the hedonism bot from Futurama, pretty much. Yeah. Do you like Star Wars, and do you like the prequels? I like the last two prequels, but I think The Phantom Menace was the worst thing since my son. Jeez. Don't like your son. I guess that's a joke based on the fact that his name is Anakin Skywalker. So he's disappointed in Luke, probably for not following in the dark side footsteps. I do like Star Wars. I grew up with Star Wars. It's a very exciting and interesting world. I hope that J.J. Abrams can capture it where George Lucas failed to recapture it in the prequels, which I think are all terrible. I do think they get progressively better, but I think if you're judging the movies on a scale from 1 to 10, it's like Phantom Menace is a 2, Attack of the Clones is a 2.5, and Revenge of the Sith is maybe like a 4 if we're generous. So I think they're all still pretty bad movies, and the reasons why, I mean, it's some of the most thoroughly criticized films of our generation, so I don't need to go into all the reasons why. I mean, just watch the Plinkett reviews, watch my old reviews on the Distressed Watcher on Blip TV. There's plenty of people out there that will elucidate for you why these movies fucking suck tremendous amounts of bantha dick. Just don't fuck with them. But, maybe that's because I didn't grow up in the right time. Maybe if the prequels had come out when I was, 8 years old, they would hold a special place in my heart. I don't know. But I think I was 14 or 15 when they first came out, something like that. And I remember being in denial when I watched The Phantom Menace. I'm like, I knew I wasn't enjoying it, but I'm sitting there like, I don't get it, It's a flaw with, I'm too tired. I went to the midnight show. I mean, I usually stay up this late, but maybe being out has made me more tired than normally I would be, and I'm not as receptive to this right now. And I need to watch this with a clear head later. And I watch it with a clear head later, but still I'm making an excuse. Oh, well, it doesn't really make sense with the information we were given in the original trilogy, and it seems to be changing the story dramatically, and it doesn't really have the feel of a Star Wars movie, and the CG is kind of cartoonish, and this Jar Jar Binks character you've created is quite annoying, but I see what you were going for, and Darth Maul's cool, and the double lightsaber is cool. It's just garbage. It's fucking garbage. Why, George Lucas? Why? So that's how it was. And the funny thing is, if I was smart, I would have just been like, you know what? George Lucas has lost his fucking mind. I'm not even going to go see the next two prequels. But instead, Attack of the Clones is announced. And I'm like, yeah, Attack of the Clones. Phantom Menace sucked, but Attack of the Clones, that's when the story really starts. And Anakin's not a dumbass, annoying little kid anymore. And this is going to be exciting. And you go, and it's just, okay. This isn't really much of an adventure, is it? It's just kind of like a lot of boring space politics and really stiff wooden acting. Okay. But, this is better. It's better than The Phantom Menace. George Lucas, he's improved slightly since, I bet by the time he makes Revenge of the Sith, it's going to be great. And so I've convinced myself, Revenge of the Sith, it's going to be the fall of Anakin Skywalker. He's going to show his transformation into Darth Vader. It's going to be fucking awesome. This is going to be the greatest fucking movie event of all time. George Lucas fucked up the last two movies, but he's going to make it up to us with this one. And of course, like anyone with a brain would have seen coming, it sucked too. White country gravy or brown gravy? Is this like a cum or shit thing where whatever I answer is like You like white country gravy? That means you like semen. You like brown gravy? That means you like shit. I remember there was something like that in my schoolyard days where they'd ask you like tacos or burritos, and you'd be like, I like burritos. That means you like dick, because tacos are kind of vaguely shaped like vaginally, and burritos are really phallic. So if you like burritos, you like fucking dick, dude. I'm just sitting there thinking I do like dick, but white country gravy, please. If you could live in a parallel universe where socially and politically everything in the United States was the exact opposite of what it currently is, would you? No. I definitely wouldn't. I mean, like, but it's hard to know what the exact opposite of certain things are with this many variables in place. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's right now we have some environmental regulations, but not in like the opinion of a hippie like me enough. But what is the opposite of that? I mean, really, a country where we have way too much environmental regulation, or a country where we have way too little or none at all? I mean, those two things are clearly opposite of each other, but what's the opposite of the middle? You know, it's very difficult to even figure out what that country would be like. You'd almost have to sit down and really examine every policy and law of our country and just say, okay, so the opposite is true. Murder is illegal in our version of America, so in their version of America, murder is legal. I mean, like, we punish murderers by sentencing them to death, so do we punish non-murderers in the other dimension? You know, it's just kind of weird. Kind of weird, man. Motherfucker. Ask me some weird-ass question. Dear TJ, I'm in high school. I'm a bisexual atheist like you. No one is like me, motherfucker. I'm unique. And I'm surrounded by homophobic Christians often. What's the best way to handle them? All I can say is just avoid them whenever possible. You know, I found that if when I went to high school, it kind of helped me to drift into a fantasy world where I'm like a vampire or something. This was before Twilight and vampires became totally lame. I'm a vampire and I'm just like forced to live among the humans, but they can't know my evil and dark secrets. So I just have to be like as unnoticeable to them as possible. That's kind of how I handled it. I don't know if that's the healthy way to handle it. You know, so I can't very well advise you how to handle it when I don't even know if I handled it properly. But it worked for me. To whatever extent, it could. Quite some time ago, I remember seeing a video on this channel which I think was called Let's Go to the Prom. It was an artistic video in which you recited a poem which I think was also called Let's Go to the Prom. As in my question, I would really like to know more about this. What was the video/poem about? Did you write it? Or if not, then who and why did you decide to make a video about it? Thanks for the answers. I had a friend come into town who was something of a videographer, and I wanted to shoot some interesting stuff, and we didn't have a lot of concrete, normal, amazing atheist type ideas to shoot, and he wanted to shoot a bunch of stuff, so I broke out a poem called Let's Go to the Prom, and I just kind of read it aloud, and we shot some stuff to coincide with it. The poem was sort of about the human predilection towards violence, nuclear annihilation, things like that, because what happens to me is I'll smoke some weed, and, sometimes I'll get really paranoid. I don't get paranoid about immediate things, usually. Usually I'll get paranoid about world events, and one of my big things is nuclear war, nuclear annihilation, because I know that it's a very real possibility. It could happen. We've come quite close to nuclear annihilation in the past, within the lifetimes, not of myself, but of people still walking this earth. We've come in to contact with the possibility of being destroyed by nuclear weapons. So I worry about that, and I guess that poem was kind of about that. I don't know if the poem will make more sense in light of knowing that, or if it'll be even stranger. I don't know why I chose the metaphors and analogies that I did. Just the way my mind works, or fails to. Are you ever nervous to be judged negatively by others about your bisexuality? I'm not ever nervous to be judged for something like that because I just assume that everyone hates me. Like, that's my initial assumption is, you know, if I'm out in public and I meet a total stranger, I just assume this motherfucker or this bitch despises me on sight, and they just fucking have this instant, visceral dislike for everything about my being. I don't know why I make that assumption, but it's probably just, I don't know. Probably like weird shit from my childhood, like being so bullied and persecuted as a kid, that mentality kind of carrying over to my adult years and just feeling like instant antagonism with any human being, really, until I actually get to know them, and then I start to like begrudgingly trust them a little bit. Do you like the Japanese language? Not particularly, no. It sounds very squeaky to my ears, regardless of who's talking. Even if there's a very masculine voice, it kind of, I don't know, it's grating to me to listen to Japanese speech. But anything is better than people speaking in English, because I can understand English. And if I overhear snippets of other people's conversations, like in a restaurant or in a line or something like that, I inevitably and invariably think that their conversations are insipid and benign and just dull and almost drive me insane with fury, because it's like, why are you talking about this stupid fucking bullshit? And then I remind myself, TJ, there's plenty of times when you're out in public and you talk about stupid fucking bullshit, and if someone overheard you, they could fucking very well have the same reaction of, oh, how dare you talk about something so banal. But, you know, knowing that I'm a hypocrite doesn't really do anything to curb the behavior, because it's just an emotional response. Like, that's stupid. I don't even want to hear it. I don't like being subjected to what you're saying. Get the fuck away from me. So any language is superior to English in that regard, because nothing annoys me more than actually hearing what other people are talking about. I like being around people who don't speak English so that I have no idea what they're saying, because then it's just noise and I can cancel that out. Do you find other comedians inspirational other than your often mentioned George Carlin? I fancy Doug Stanhope and Tom Lehrer myself. Have you heard of them? I've heard of Doug Stanhope. I've watched quite a bit of his comedy. I like Patton Oswalt. I like Bill Hicks. I liked Richard Pryor. I liked Eddie Murphy. Early Eddie Murphy. You have to say early Eddie Murphy because, like, I don't like Big Mama's House. That was Martin Lawrence, actually, but who can even tell the fucking difference? What was it? Norbit, you know, shit like Norbit and Pluto Nash and Haunted Mansion. I don't want anyone to think I like that Eddie Murphy. I don't like that Eddie Murphy. I like the real Eddie Murphy from the 1970s and 80s. That guy was cool. Dave Chappelle, find him to be really funny, really honest, really insightful. There's quite a few comedians I like. I mean, I'm definitely skipping over some names here. Sam Kinison, Rodney Dangerfield. There's plenty, but as for how many have actually influenced me, though, probably just George Carlin and Bill Hicks. I don't think I've really taken much in from other comedians. I've enjoyed it, but I've not really seen a way to incorporate it into what I do. But then again, a lot of that's unconscious, so you never really know what's inspiring you completely. No one could have that complete bibliography of, like, these are the things that motivate and inspire me and make, you know, these are my muses. You don't always know that shit. If the universe is infinite, Oh, I'm sorry. Is the universe infinite, or does it have borders? If it does have borders, then what is outside of those borders? The face of God! The face of God looks in upon the universe. No. I'm not sure if the universe is infinite or if it has borders. I don't believe that it's thought to be infinite. But what lies beyond it? Nothing, something, I don't know. I'm not a astrophysicist or any sort of cosmologist, so I've heard people say it curves back in on itself. So the beginning is also the ending. That has a poetic quality to it. So maybe that's true. Maybe poetry wins out in the end. What is your honest opinion on the UK? My honest opinion is I've never lived there, so I really don't know. I can critique certain policies that I see that are not in line with my values, but I've never actually lived in the UK. I've never even really visited the UK, so I don't see how I can have a complete picture or a well-formed opinion that I could be like, the UK is like this, because then I'm just one of those people that pretends to know things they actually don't know. And, I try to be above that sort of thing. That doesn't mean I never talk about the UK, because obviously sometimes I do. I've talked about proposed cigarette bans in the UK. I've talked about the restrictive pornography laws in the UK. I've probably talked about the UK. I've talked shit about soccer, which they call football. And that was actually the thing that got me the most unsubscribes ever. I criticized soccer, and I lost 2,000 subscribers. That's how fucking dedicated they are to soccer. Football. Sorry. What is your ideal way to die? I don't know, it'd have to be just to not die and live forever. Because, I find myself, certain unwelcome times I'll just think, like, I could die right now. Right this very second. I could just fucking heart attack, brain aneurysm, drop dead. You're gone. You had all these dreams you wanted to accomplish. Well, too fucking bad. Now you're dead. So that seems like a drag to me, man. That seems like a royal fucking bummer. Why would I want to participate in that? I choose to opt out of death. Hey, TJ, what's your favorite food? I wish I could say something refined or at least respectable, but pizza. Does my dick make my ass look big? Thanks for answering my previous questions. I have no idea what your dick or your ass look like, so be sure to send those in, and I will judge. Yes, I will. How good are you at math? I'm as good at math as a quadruple amputee is as good at hockey. How do you feel better about life other than smoking weed? I don't know that weed makes you feel better about life. I think weed, to me anyway, the effect that I get from it is that it distracts me from like boredom and ennui, because it's like you get in these patterns where you just shut your mind off and you just kind of go into like, there's nothing going on. It's like screensaver in there, and you're just like, ugh. And weed, to me, basically activates my thought process again, like, hey, let's actually examine the world around us with curiosity and intrigue. So that's what it did for me. I would say that it treats my depression. It sounds ridiculous. Because, we're meant to think that anyone who claims that weed has done anything positive for them is just trying to justify them doing it. But it's really true. I mean, like, because of depression, I often feel unmotivated. It's hard for me to enjoy things. But, I smoke that, and it's like, all of a sudden I'm engaged. I don't look engaged. I kind of look like I'm spacing out, but I'm not spacing out. My mind is racing. It's almost like I'm overwhelmed by the sheer abundance of thoughts that I'm having. So I guess that weed actually does make you feel better about life. At least it does in my case. How do you feel about life? How do you feel better about life other than that? Well, I mean, if weed doesn't work for you, then, try something else. You can go to the medical establishment, try some of their anti-depression kind of pills, mood stabilizers, anti-anxiety, shit like that. And then there's probably natural therapeutic shit like, cultivate a rock garden. I don't fucking know. Whatever is going to work for you. Every person is different. We're not all going to have the same approach to the same problem. TJ, on your TJ Does Life channel, you uploaded videos with the titles Fear, Weakness, and Truth. I was wondering what, if any, meaning there is behind these videos. If there is no meaning, then why did you make them? Those are kind of Bray Wyatt fan videos. For those of you who don't know who Bray Wyatt is, he's one of the WWE World Wrestling Entertainment superstars. And he has a particularly interesting persona. He's like one of the few wrestlers that I think is actually a pretty decent actor. Not that the acting skills are really that important. He's got a lot of charisma. He has an interesting character. His character's kind of like a Charles Manson-esque, like the backwoods dirty preacher man who preaches his own strange gospel like you've never heard before. And it's just kind of rambling. And it kind of seems like there might be some kind of depth or message to it. But on the other hand, maybe it just sounds like it's just gibberish. And so with those 3 videos on my TJ Does Life channel, I was experimenting with doing that character. Now, obviously, I couldn't play it exactly like whatever Bray Wyatt's real name is plays Bray Wyatt. But I tried to do my own version of it, and I think I did pretty well. It seemed like people were entertained by it and enjoyed it for the most part, although some people were very confused because I didn't post any explanation. You said you were very introverted when you were younger and had serious social anxiety, but it's less of a problem these days. Any particular reason for the improvement? The way that it's, I think the only reason for the improvement, I want to credit other things. I want to say that I've matured or that, I conquered the problem or something. I still have the bad social anxiety, but it's like, if you live in a world where there's dragons everywhere, then eventually you're scared of dragons, you're still scared of them, but you just kind of accept it as a reality. It's always a possibility in your mind. If you have social anxiety, you're still scared of people, but after you just face it day in, day out, it's like, well, you just learn how to deal with the fear. It's not like the fear goes away. At least not in my case. It's just that you just face it. And you face it constantly. And eventually you just become so numb to it that you barely pay attention anymore. Do you ever feel like there are just too many people who are satisfied with their lives as is, that they are a detriment to the minority who want to get necessary changes accomplished? Americans, and not really just Americans, but people in general do have a tendency towards complacency where if they reach a certain level of comfort in their lives, even if their lives are kind of shitty and miserable, but if they're just content enough with that, they don't want to change anything. Even if it'll benefit them, they just don't want to change anything. They don't want to fuck with the process of changing something. They feel like change is always a bad thing, always going to be a detriment. And of course, you're always coming against those people. That's really the definition of a conservative, is someone who's scared of change or even wants to roll back changes to regress to a simpler time that they feel was better. but it's like defenders of the status quo. And, I think in some ways it's kind of good that there's that battle, because if every social change that was ever proposed just swept the land like wildfire unopposed because no one took a stand and said, hey, things are fine the way they are, if that never happened, then we'd live in a pretty crazy and unstable world. So it's good that these ideas have some pushback and that people have to fight it out. But unfortunately, when you get in a time when technology is advancing so quickly, ideas have to react as quickly as technology develops. We have that. That's why it's like such a big deal to so many people that we live in the nuclear age, but we still have people who are basically living these very insular, tribal, religious, extremist existences. And it's kind of scary to think that these people who have this very archaic view of the world coexist with modern technology and modern weaponry. So it's important that ideas evolve quicker now, but they really don't. Maybe a little bit because of the internet and other mass communication, we can kind of shoot ideas back and forth with each other a little bit quicker. But it doesn't seem to have made our ideology and our attitudes and our approaches and our recognition of when change is needed. It doesn't really seem to speed that up as much as is really needed for an era where things and events unfold so quickly. TJ, what do you think about Europe's highest court ruling that obesity is a disability? Also, do you think there is any point in trying to argue with a believer about their irrational beliefs when they are clearly stubbornly adherent to their positions? For obesity being a disability, I mean, like, at some point, obesity definitely is a disability. If someone's so fat that they literally can, not leave their house or need to drive around in one of those ridiculous, gigantic motorized scooter carts, that person is obviously disabled. Now, you could say their disability is their own fault. You could also say that about someone who got injured in a surfing accident or something. Well, you shouldn't have taken the fucking risk in the first place. But yeah, it definitely is a disability. I don't see how that could even really be argued with. It's by definition a disability. They're disabled. They can't perform normal human functions because their body is no longer suited to do it. That's the definition of a disability. As for whether there's any point in arguing with irrational believers who are not willing to change their minds, I was thinking the other day about sometimes people point out contradictions in my videos. And it's just very not to paraphrase Sarah Palin, but that's what I'm going to do. Gotcha! The gotcha media. Well, these are like the gotcha YouTube commenters. You contradicted yourself. It's like, well, I'm glad that I contradicted myself. The fact that I contradicted myself shows that there's an internal conflict within me. And the fact that there's an internal conflict means that I have the capability to change. That my ideas are always in the process of being questioned, that I don't 100% have these convictions laid out for me, that I'm flexible, I am capable of entertaining other ideas. I think when you lose that ability and you just say, I'm certain and no one can dissuade me, then what you're really doing is you're just flipping the off switch on any possibility you have of enlightenment, whatever that word means to you, whatever your definition of enlightenment is. I guess if your definition of enlightenment is exactly the way that I am now, then you've already reached it. So I guess you can feel free to stop, but you're never actually going to reach a more enlightened point of view than where you are now if you're not willing to question your assumptions and change your mind. So only people who don't believe they have any room for improvement whatsoever should have absolute certainty in their ideas and their values. All right, well, I think that 34 minutes and 45, 6, 7, 8 seconds is probably enough. I will probably return to this and answer some more questions tomorrow morning, but we'll just put this one up for tonight. We'll have 2 parts. It'll probably add up to about an hour, maybe a little bit more. But I'll let you digest this one before I bring you the next one. Cheers.